to explain some of these other sheets to you. So if you flip, the next sheet is questions that I have students write about after reading the story. Sometimes I'll just ask students these questions in class, and we'll discuss them. And sometimes I'll have them write on it as homework. It just kind of depends on how the day goes and what my goals are and things like that. But that's actually a sheet that I've handed out to kids before. And then I've got a story on the contracting Earth, continental drift, and plate tectonics, which right now I'm teaching Earth science, so that's why these two stories are in here. I like this story because it shows a revolution in science. I guess Galileo shows a revolution in science as well, but this one's a little bit more clear that it's a revolution. The ideas are being changed, and that there's also the idea of rejection, and that there's a community of scientists. I think in one thing it talks about Wagner, and some scientists had like 18 different arguments against Wagner's ideas. And so it shows how they're holding on to their old ideas. And I liken it to wing walking, where they're not going to let go of one wire when they're walking on a wing until they have firm hold of another one. So they're going to really test this other one before they make the leap over. And then I got questions that I ask students to write about with that story. And then this next one is actually more of a technological story than it is a science story. It's about penicillin and the discovery of penicillin. I put discovery in quotes because I would argue there's always a character of invention, because he had to figure out what was going on and why it was happening and what was causing it. And here I've embedded the questions into the story. And I actually prefer this way better, because then the kids don't read the whole story and then have to go back to the whole thing. They actually, there's a nature science idea that was just noted or illustrated, and then they reflect on it. And then the Lysenko sheet is actually, it's the same story. Top, and it's just halves. I would make copies and just cut them in half. And so the reason I put this one in is, one, it's more biology, genetics, things like that. But also, these don't have to be long. A lot of times, the historical examples I use in class are me just telling the students about something. I tell students about Watson and Crick and DNA a lot, because that illustrates a lot. Like the Watson and Crick actually built out of, I believe it was metal, models and then put them together. And the kids do a lot of model building when they do, like, I have an activity that I call the tubes, where there's 4 strings coming out of a tube and they got to figure out what's on the inside. A lot of you have probably seen that. And they build models. And so Watson and Crick is like what they did. And there's also multiple people working there. The one thing I don't like about the Galileo story is it makes it seem like Galileo's on his own, which I don't know if that's true or not. I would guess he was probably talking it over with some people. But the story makes it seem like Galileo was alone, which is actually likely not true. And then what else do I have here? Oh, I got the path to the periodic table, which this is more like an introduction to who Dalton was. It doesn't really talk much about his work. And that came out of a book called Chemical Achievers. I think it's by Mary Bowen, or B-O-W-E-N. And then the last one is a piece on technology with questions embedded again. And I think that actually talks about the printing press.